Hello, and welcome to Smart Mortgage Insights. I'm Mandy LaRose.
And I'm Conor Levinka. You've heard us before talk about title several times. We say title, we got to get a title policy, title this, title that. But what does all that mean? And why is it important to you? Let's talk about that today.
We're going to research title.
We are going to do a title search.
Here we go. Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. So basically what happens is, so the first thing, once you're in contract, generally the realtor will, either your realtor or the seller, generally it's the seller's realtor, is going to send over the contract to the title company. And the title company is generally, I like to say generally a lot today, the buyer's choice as well on the contract. And so that will be sent over to the title company, and they will then start what we call a title search. This is important to you. Basically what a title search is, it's going to tell you the history of the property. It's going to confirm who owns the property currently. It's going to show you who's owned the property in the past as well. So it's going to give a really good chain of what's gone on that property. Another really important thing in a title search is going to be not only who owns it, but what is against the property as well.
Exactly. And it's going to show what's called a lien in our business. That is a claim to the property, which is typically by a bank or a mortgage, or it could be something else. It could be from the federal government with a tax lien. There could be several different things, but when you buy a property, you want to make sure that the only lien against the property is going to be the new mortgage that you're taking out.
Absolutely. And it's going to be, we're ourselves and also obviously the title company, they're going to search that property and make sure that when you take over ownership of that property, that all of the liens that are currently on the property have been taken care of. So
Exactly.
If said seller has a couple mortgages on the property, maybe they had done some work with a local builder or a company in town, and that company didn't get paid, and so a lien was put against them. Or maybe they haven't paid their property taxes.
Yeah. That's totally okay for you as a buyer.
Yes, absolutely, and they've got a lien on there. The important thing is all of that is taken care of when you, the buyer, take over the property. So the title company will make sure that all of that is clear. They're also going to do a search on you, the buyer, as well. I've recently actually had this come up where a borrower, because credit reports, let me back up a little bit, credit reports used to, remember I've been doing this for decades, used to show tax liens, bankruptcies, all of those types of things, and credit reports do not show that anymore. So a lot of times we find that information out in the title search. Again, against you, the borrower, as well. I've recently had one come up where a borrower, they owe a pretty substantial tax lien, and so it's being taken care of, and luckily they have the means to do it, and so it is. But child support, that we see that pop up quite a bit as well. You think that it's been taken care of, and maybe it has been, but the lien just hasn't been recorded to show that it's clear. And that's usually what happens a lot of times, is you'll see these liens pop up, and maybe they have been taken care of, they just for whatever reason have not been recorded. Also, we see these liens pop up on people who have very common names, like if your name's Robert Smith or Bob Jones or things like that.
Could be misrecorded.
Absolutely, and I think that happens the most. So we're going to make sure that all of that is taken care of as well. Another thing that that the title report's going to actually show you is the CC&Rs, the covenants, conditions, and restrictions, which is going to tell you about your neighborhood, where you're buying into. Maybe you have a homeowners association in your neighborhood, which if you do, there's going to be some additional paperwork that you're going to receive on that.
Can you have horses? Can you have chickens?
Absolutely.
Things like that.
Can you paint your house pink if you want? Please don't, but if you want to, and you need to make sure you can do that in your neighborhood. So that the title report is also going to spell those out to you as well and tell you what you can and cannot do. I live in a neighborhood that was established about 20 years ago. And what's interesting about my neighborhood is there is an actual homeowners association, but it's just not active. So if at some point we wanted to make it active, we could, but at this point it is not. So something you want to kind of pay attention to, that you could potentially have a homeowner association eventually down the line in your neighborhood too. So all those things you want to be able to check out.
to shift gears a little bit, what it also talks about is easements. Easements are super important to know where they are. Pretty much all properties have an easement, and what that means is an easement or a right-of-way. There's a couple of differences between the two, but we'll talk about easements in general. They're typically going to be utilities. So power is going to get laid to your house along with gas, gas and cable and whatnot. And what typically is it's normally like a 10-foot section on the edge of your property that you actually own, but the utility companies are allowed to excavate and put cables in there, whatever they may need. But what's important is you cannot build a structure in that because they need to have access to it. The other one is a right-of-way. It could be that your neighbor has a permanent right-of-way to get to their driveway, an easement in that sense. So it's very important to know where your property boundaries are and where your easements are so you can make sure to not build a building in them.
Absolutely, yes. That we've got generally have the 5 foot or 10-foot easement in the front, 5 feet on the side. So you want to know where your property line is, but also, like Connor said, you want to make sure that you're not building anything in that area because
they can tear it down.
They can tear it down and not rebuild it. This goes for flower beds, rock beds that you put in these areas. Yes, we all like to make the end of our driveways look nice and edging and everything else, but do remember that a lot of that is, either it could be tore up. You could be notified that they need to do something there. So again, another important thing to pay attention to. And then I think we've covered it already, but the judgments, bankruptcies, things like that will show up on there. The other thing that's going to show up on there is property taxes. So, of course, we have access to, generally in every jurisdiction as to what the property taxes are, but it's going to confirm what the taxes are on the property, but also the title company up to closing will confirm what has been paid on property taxes at that moment in time as well, because the seller is responsible up until closing for the property taxes for that year, and then you will take over anything else. So, title reports and title fees and things like that, some people look at that and they're like, really, that seems so expensive, but title insurance is a super, super important part of this process.
The key word she said, insurance.
Exactly. Like what we just explained, could you imagine not having a title search done and closing on a loan and ending up with someone else's 3 liens on their property?
It happens.
It does.
A needle in a haystack, it happens.
Yes.
But if you get a title policy from a title company, they miss it, and down the road, all of a sudden, a lien is owed to someone else. It doesn't belong to you. They pay out.
Absolutely. I actually had it happen one time with some clients that I had done a loan for, and they had come in to do a refinance. And we went over, all the documents, everything else. We order title like we do on every purchase, refinance, everything we do. Anything you're going to do with your loan, title will be ordered, okay, on your property. So you want to refinance your property 3, 4, 5, 8 times. Every single time that happens, title will be required because they have to make sure no other liens have shown or judgments have shown up against that property. So in this particular instance, I did a loan for these borrowers. 3 or 4 years later, they come back to me. They want to do a refinance. We do the paperwork. They go on their way. I get the title report, and it shows that there's a second mortgage on the property. I go back to their file, look at the credit report. There's nothing showing on there. English was not their first language, so I was trying to kind of help them explain. I was trying to explain exactly what was going on. Of course, they're looking at me like, what is happening here? So come to find out, there was a second mortgage when they purchased the home that never got closed out. And guess what? They didn't have to deal with it when they did that refinance because it was the title insurance company's responsibility at that point. I guarantee the title insurance company probably went back after that seller again, even though it's been several years. They still have the due diligence to do that. But that was just a really great example of why title insurance is so important.
Absolutely. And finally, even if you are going to pay cash for a property,
yes,
get a title search and get a title policy done.
Yes.
Because these things do pop up. So we hope we shed some light on titles today, because it really tells you a lot about the property and then about an individual if you have anything in your personal name. So if you have any questions, please let us know, but otherwise we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
This podcast is sponsored by Residential Mortgage LLC, NMLS numbers 167729, 196 576, and 1820404. Equal housing lender.